Bigfoot, is it real or is it a legend? How come there's no conclusive proof ever found? Sure, there are footprints, but do you believe in it? Stay tuned for Speaking of Spirits. Hey everybody, this is Colleen with Speaking of Spirits, and today I have a new podcaster with me, and this is Kelly.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey Kelly. So on a Speaking of Spirits, we have all the girls group, and we're taking that stuff in a different direction. And Kelly and I thought, hey, let's keep diving into some dark and crypto subjects. So we're going to talk about today. We're talking about Bigfoot.
Yeah, one of my favorite subjects. My
That's
favorite
great.
cryptid. Yeah.
That's awesome. And actually, if you guys aren't aware, there are more than Bigfoot cryptid out there. There's other cryptids, and we're gonna be kind of diving into some of those subjects. So I think you're gonna like it. And if you've listened to the podcast before, I'm a real skeptic when it comes to Bigfoot, and you're like, how in the world can you be skeptical of Bigfoot but believe in the paranormal, right? And well, and so I come from a scientific background. I'm an environmental scientist. That's what I do for my work. And so I'm always going, show me the facts. Paranormal stuff, I can catch audio and not always video, but thermal. I can do all of this stuff. Bigfoot, right? We have 1,000 pictures out there, but I keep looking at him like there's a guy in a monkey suit. What are your thoughts?
Exactly. It's always, you can have one of the best videos, photos, everything, and somebody's going to say that's a guy in a monkey suit almost every single time. But from what I understand, there are some physical differences that have cropped up over the years that if you watch it walk, a human has a head bob when they walk. And for some reason, a Sasquatch doesn't. They seem to glide everywhere.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, Kelly.
The length of the arms. If our arms go down to our hips, theirs almost go to their knees.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just their hands are way bigger than a human's hands, like the size of a catcher's mitt. That just physical differences and they're fast, apparently. So by the time
For being such a big animal, you'd think they would be kind of lumbering and loud,
that's
noisy.
clumsy, loud, noisy.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they are just the stealthiest things out there, unless they don't want to be. It's really bizarre.
So, Kelly, to get ready for the podcast, I was kind of looking at, different Bigfoot sites, and I know what people think, right? I mean, even paranormally, like when I present something on video or audio that we've captured on our team, I want people to believe it, because we are not faking anything. We will never fake anything. We go so far as we throw out probably 50% of anything we capture, because if we're in doubt, we throw it out, right? Or and sometimes though, you're left with, hey, we can't figure this one out. We think it's paranormal. And so, being a skeptic on other stuff, I'm fully prepared that there are a lot of teams out there that probably think our stuff is skeptical. That's just human nature, right? If we didn't do it, if we didn't see it and we didn't experience it, we tend to think it's bunkus. So I am going to share a picture of allegedly, and I have some real questions with this photo, but I'm going to share it. It's going to pop up on your screen. And this is allegedly the very first Bigfoot taken. Now, this photo taken. Now, this website is ancientorigins.net. Now, do you see the photo in the center?
Oh, this one.
Yeah, so allegedly this is a Bigfoot, but when I look at this, particularly the head and paws, this looks to be like some sort of cat. The head is very distinctive shape of a cat, and the paws. Now back here, I don't know what's going on. It almost looks like they put on black pants.
Yeah, they almost look like ski pants.
Don't they? So to
Yeah.
give you a perspective of scale, these are old snowshoes on the left side of the photo. Okay, so snowshoes obviously have gone down in scale as technology has gotten better. And so they're not as long as they used to be, but these are still an adult male snowshoes. Now, we don't know the scale of this little tree back here. We don't know, anything else for scale. I have a real hard time believing that this is a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I do too. It's just, they didn't even try to sprawl it out or anything. It just kind of
No,
lumped it there and said, there it is.
so allegedly, this was printed on the back of the photo, and this is year 1894, and the writing is hard, so they have a description down here. It's the Yallecum River in British Columbia. It's a Hudson Bay Company property, and they took the picture. And allegedly, the other photos that were taken were stolen, and there's this huge cover up. The website does talk about the Hudson Bay, but here's another angle of the photo. Now, if you notice this one looks a little different to me, and I don't believe this is a leg. I don't believe that's a leg. I don't know what they're doing, but these are paws. Those paws.
Yeah, I don't know.
And this to me looks like a cat head. I almost see right here a cat ear. So I'm having a hard time with this one. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Pictures from way back then had like hardly any definition at all. So it could have been anything really.
Right. So we have that, and then, but we also wanted to talk about some of the other things that people are presenting as evidence. I'm really hoping my dogs don't go bananas because the Amazon guy is here delivering. So we have various structures that are allegedly built throughout the forest that people claim are Bigfoot structures, right?
Bigfoot structures. I've looked a little bit on about that yesterday. I found some teepee structures and some A-frame structures, and honestly, anybody could build those.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you guys a structure, and I'm going to show you this structure right here. Let's see, is this the one? I think this is it. So if you look at this structure right here, this is allegedly a Bigfoot den. Now, I want everybody to remember the size that this creature allegedly is. This creature's supposed to be something like, 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall, something like that.
Average is 8 feet.
Okay. I think
around here anyway.
Kelly, I don't know how tall you are, but you're a big guy. I think you would have a hard time getting into this structure. This is not very big.
How wide? Yeah, how wide is that
I
hole?
don't know.
About
I'm
three
thinking
feet?
this thing is maybe 10 feet wide or so, and then it's not very tall. So now for comparison, I want to show you what a badger den looks like. And the reason why I'm sharing this because I'm familiar with badgers. I one of the mine sites that I work on, we have a badger den out there, so I've been there several times, and I know kind of how big it is. So um, let's see, badger. This is a badger den. Now, tell me this doesn't look somewhat similar. I mean, obviously it's dug into the dirt, but the size of the hole. That's a big hole. Badgers can make a very big den. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
about the
uh,
same.
about the same. All right. As we keep talking, I'm going to keep sharing some different photos that I have found I'm just kind of skeptical on some of this stuff. But you wanted to talk about there's like an 8-frame structure, and I did find one of those. Let me see if I can scroll to it. Sorry, folks. There's a lot of okay. Okay. Again, I am super skeptical of this image here. Let me share it. This one is allegedly built by a Bigfoot, but um, so this to me screams human built structure all the way around. It has walls. I don't see.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, how far back in the woods did they find it?
There's never any information with this stuff. Let's go
They're just
back.
like, oh, this is what we found, and that's it.
Yeah. Um, pretty much. I'm
And,
just so skeptical of some of this stuff. Some of it, this one here, they call this a Sasquatch den. I'm going to share this one. This is deadfall. This is what happens in a windstorm when you have, um, they're called widowmakers out in the field. When we're out in the field working in the woods, that's deadfall. That's not a den. I don't know how you could say that's a den.
oh yeah, yeah, we get trees like that around here all the time.
Yeah,
That's usually caused from windstorms, snow
windstorms.
load,
Yeah,
and a mix of both. Yeah,
and
and we do get
these look like
widowmakers.
these look like elms to me. This looks like an elm branch.
Yeah,
It could be an old cottonwood, and they drop branches like you wouldn't believe. So
yeah,
having a
we
hard
get.
time with that one. You know, I've seen bear den. Bear den are fairly substantial in size. I mean, black bears are that's the dens that I've seen out in the woods, just working in the forests as long as I have. That you run into an occasional black bear den, and not only are they fairly large, they smell to high hell because they're pooping them, and they're everybody thinks bears are asleep
Mm,
for 4 months, 5 months. No,
nope, no,
they're
they
not.
are just
No,
they're just kind of lingering.
yeah, they're in and out, and a lot of times they're nursing their cubs. The females, if they have a cub, they're nursing the whole time. I actually asked a biologist that I work with who don't knock that down, kid. He radio collars grizzly bears. That's part of his job. And I said, well, are they asleep? And he goes, no, we have to kind of crawl into the den. We put a pole and a camera in, kind of look at them. And they're kind of lingering in and out. If we can get in there and we dart them real fast, and then we back out of the den. And I'm like, holy moly, I wouldn't do that for all the money in the world.
You better be getting paid quite a bit for that job. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, and on the topic of, the whole Bigfoot thing and the size of the dens, he said, like the black bear den that I've run across, they stink. So a lot of people attribute the smell of some of these dens to Bigfoot. Well, animals stink. They poop.
Yeah, but
They poop in
yeah,
their
yeah.
dens.
Apparently, the smell of a Sasquatch is way worse than any bear stench.
Hmm.
like knock you over flat on your butt, stink bad. So
Well, I've never run into anything like that smelled that bad, but y- there's also noises that are attributed to Bigfoot, right?
yes, a lot of noises, mimicry. Let's see, rock knocks, wood knocks, mimicry, whistles, whoops, howls, uh, grunts, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and I've never heard the I I've never heard the knock. Well, we did have a paranormal investigation where we had knocking. It sounded like a baseball bat hitting a tree trunk. But
I've
there was it's farmland. Different scenario, totally unexplainable what was going on during this investigation. We don't know what was causing the knocks. And it was knocking back to us. But I've never heard it in the woods, but I've heard some other stuff that I don't know what it was. You know? So could it have been a different kind of animal? I don't know. And okay, so when I say in the woods, I've worked all over the Sierra Nevadas, from all over the Sierra Nevadas. And there's a lot of the Sierra Nevadas that it's uninhabited. It's forest. It's deep forest. And then Humboldt County, where the Bigfoot video was allegedly taken back then, the video. I've rode horses all through there. I've worked up in that kind of area. I've worked in the big trees. I've worked kind of all over Northern California. And I've heard some interesting sounds, but as you go back and you listen to, like, most people don't understand that cougar chirp like birds. And
That's
so,
interesting.
yeah, if you're not familiar with all of the sounds of the normal wildlife that you're expected to encounter out there, you wouldn't know. You would not know that chirp that you just heard is like they're talking to each other. And then they chirp just like a bird, or what you think maybe like a squirrel would, some of their vocalizations. That's actually a cat. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But you have some theories on some of this stuff, and I want to hear them.
Um, mimicry. I think some of it. I've heard a couple of people say that they've heard the sounds of babies crying in the woods or children playing in the woods. Mimicry of an owl. And at the end of its hoot, you could actually hear something large cough. Or a, somebody said heard the sound of a raven cawing, and it was way too big to be a regular raven. And it's just, I
Interesting.
mean, and the wood knock thing, I've actually had that happen to me um, out camping on a property in McCammon, and it was rhythmic. It was 1, 2, 3, and it sounded like a baseball bat getting hit against
The tree trunk.
a tree trunk. And
In
when I went up to
McCammon, of all
check
places, were you like up
in
against
McCammon,
the, were you up near the, like, Good Enough campground, or
I was below it. I was down in the canyon.
you were in the canyon where all the maples, so it's pretty heavily wooded through there?
No,
No?
it was all
You
no,
were,
it was all cattle grazing land, pasture land. And when I went
hmm,
up to go check, because that's going to be a million and one chance that's ever going to happen to you, is you hear that 3 hits, and you're like, I you go camping and you don't have Bigfoot on the brain, but when you hear that and it's plain as day, it was plain as day. It was like maybe 100 yards away. I was like, I got up out of my chair. I went, oh no way! Got towards the property line, and something roared at me, and I was like, nope, we're done. And I went and sat
really?
back in my chair. Yeah,
So, but it wasn't a really heavily forested land. So, what do you think it was hitting on?
There's a theory out there that they can make a pop like that with their mouth. Like we can go like that.
Huh.
There's a theory out there like that. I don't know, but it's one of those things you can go your whole life and you'll never hear it, but if you know what you look for and you hear it, you're like, yeah, that'll never happen again. I have to go check it out. So
Yeah, the vocalization part is really interesting. I had not heard that they are mimicking um, the baby crying. I mean, human cries are pretty distinct. I don't know what other animal would vocalize it like a human baby cry. I think there are cries out there, like there are like fox and stuff like that, and they have something similar. But I think if you heard it, you'd be like, no, yeah, that's not it. That sounds human, you know?
I I think it has to do with human behavior. If you hear an infant crying in the woods, you feel compelled to go check it out and make sure everything's okay. And
Yeah.
it almost teeters on predatory behavior because they know that you're going to come look for it. And once you're in there in a bottleneck, then it's game over. They have you.
Yeah, but has anybody actually been killed by Bigfoot?
There's theories that yes, they probably have. There's theories that the ones with red fur are cannibals, and if you run into one, they will kill you and they will eat you.
Hmm. Well, I mean, people do go missing, but I've always assumed that they're, growing up in the Sierras, there's 100,000 mines and adits and shafts and vents and that's why I've always
Yeah,
well they go missing because they fell into a mine. They fell into a shaft
exactly.
or a vent.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
the one of the. That's one of the conclusions I've come up to too. It's like it's not always Bigfoot or paranormal that people just disappear up in the woods. I mean, all you got to do is walk a trail and slip and fall. Your head hits a rock, you fall into a chasm, and you get wedged in there, and that's where you're going to stay
well, look,
forever.
what
No
was
one's
that
ever going to find you.
that young man that fell through rock in Utah? He ended up cutting off his own leg to get out. That
Oh, his
story.
arm.
Oh, it was his arm. Yeah, he was like trapped. There was
Yeah.
no getting out of that. So, he,
Yeah. What was his
yeah,
name?
I don't remember, but I mean, the
James.
point is, people go missing. People die, and so um, I don't know. Have we? Okay, so if you were a hiker and you're out in the woods and you stumble upon a grisly scene where somebody obviously has been murdered, right? First thing I'm thinking of is, well, either a human or a cat. Cat more likely than a bear. Cats are everywhere and you don't know they're there. Um, they're everywhere. Um, I've had cougar on the roof of my house going out to feed my horses at 5. And I've stepped outside, opened the sliding glass door, and you're like, you just know, you just stop frozen. And I looked up and there's a cat looking down at me. I've had, so I mean, they're everywhere. They're in our environment. We just don't. You're in the woods. There's chances are there's been cats watching you. So, and they're quiet and fast. So,
Oh yeah.
I would think human, cat, bear. You know what I mean? Like human, cat,
Yeah,
bear.
in that order. Yeah, it's always I'm always science first, and then everything else second.
Yeah.
But
So if maybe
it's the
people have run into a scene where there's been, you think, an animal attack. Well, Bigfoot, I consider it an animal, but my mind doesn't go right to a Bigfoot unless I had some kind of other compelling evidence like
it
footprints.
depends on how it depends on how they met their demise, unfortunately. I mean, from what I understand, the way Bigfoot takes down its prey is they break its neck and they snap their bones. They literally just pummel things to death.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't necessarily want to run into one, that's for sure. I don't know.
I don't either. I don't want to test that theory.
So I spent a week up in Coeur d'Alene. I had to look at a lot of old mines up there, so I had to spend a week up there. And it's kind of like, again, deep forest north of Wallace, right? We're up there in wow. I mean, if there's habitat, you keep going. You would consider some of this dense forest would be perfect habitat, but in all my years flying over the Sierra Nevadas, we've owned aircraft and we flew constantly. Like my dad probably every day, me probably every week for years. Um, I've never seen anything. I've never seen anything. Oh,
It's it's a it's a 1 in a million chance you'll ever see one, ever. And they're not just stuck to the mountains. They've been reports coming out of as far as Henderson, Nevada, as far as Arizona, New Mexico,
you would think that they would want to
Texas.
have cover, though. Now East Texas,
They do.
yes. Well, not on the desert. There's not cover.
Uh,
I mean,
the
there's
Mongolian, not Mongolian, Mogollon Rim in Arizona has plenty of cover. It's like the canyon in Twin Falls. It's all desert outside, but as soon as you go into the canyon, it's green and lush and
yeah, but
plenty of
that's
cover
it's,
for them.
it's pretty. I mean, just my point is that would be a pretty small environment, and it's pretty probably heavily used by humans. So, just like there's a canyon. Gosh, I forget the name out of it. It's like if you didn't know it was there, it's not Palo Duro. In Amarillo, like you're on this like tabletop out there desert as far as you can see. It's cotton fields and you're just out there. And then you start driving south and all of a sudden there's this enormous canyon. It's beautiful. It's lush and gorgeous and it goes for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. But still, there's probably 10,000 people down there every single day because there's nothing
Right.
like that in Amarillo. So everybody goes down there, you know what I mean? To mountain bike and hike and everything else. So that's where I have the sense of skepticism comes in because I'm like, if they're using these areas with the amount of humans that are in there,
They're
somebody
probably
would.
not going to be there.
Why would they be in Henderson, Nevada? You know what I'm saying?
There's theories that they migrate. I don't know.
Uh,
Yeah, there's theories they migrate from the Wasatch to up through here and north for the summer, and then back down towards the wintertime for whatever reason.
I do know, looking at some of the sites, I mean, Oklahoma and 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 eastern Oklahoma, like eastern Texas, is very heavily wooded, right? Huge amount of sightings there, huge. And that human interaction, which is, we were talking about it before the podcast. It's unusual. It seems to be unusual. Why would they seek out a human? There seems to be that interaction with people.
Yeah, I think it's maybe it's a form of entertainment to them. I mean, if you're living your life out in the woods all the time and you're just sitting your mind in your own business, and then a camper pulls up and it's people, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to play with them
Hmm. Yeah, it's
just a little bit,
interesting.
just a little bit. I don't know how many stories I've heard of people going camping. They're out on the outer edge of a camping spot or further back than the normal RV
Hmm.
camp is supposed to be. and they're minding their own business, and all of a sudden, just middle of the night, wham, something slaps the side of their camper and rocks everything. And they get up and people are freaking out, and they're jumping outside and looking for whatever did it, and it's gone. But they
Well,
check the cord, they check the back panel of whatever's.
that would be terrifying. And honestly, bears aren't going to do that.
No,
No bear is going to come up and just hit the side of your camper.
yeah, no, and then the ones where people have seen them peering over the side of their over the top of their tent to look down on them, or there's been people reporting that they've actually taken their hand and reached in and grabbed somebody's head that has been sitting inside the tent, and then when they freak out, they let go and run off. It's just
Wow.
I I and then there's reports of them sticking their hand under the tent and touching people and then running off. And I got to thinking, have you ever heard the term counting coup? It's a Native American term. I can't quite remember it, but they would sneak into enemy camps and do certain little things and then take off. And that was their signal to the other tribe that, hey, we can get into your camp and this is what we can do, just to let you know that we can do it, and then run off. So, yeah, it's just a big, scary creature that is supposed to be able to make a whole lot of noise, just walk right up to your tent and look right down on you is terrifying to me.
Yeah, and considering the alleged scale of these things, um, that's interesting. It almost seems somewhat playful. Um, Here's a photo I want to share with you of what somebody took from their vehicle. Um, just yeah, it's in Pennsylvania. I lived in Pennsylvania for 5 years, very heavily wooded. What are your thoughts on this photo?
It's not quite clear. Oh, my guys aren't as good as they used to be.
I know that you're podcasting on your cell phone, so it's a
Yeah, I kind of looks like a tree trunk fell over, honestly, with moss on it.
yeah. I mean, it does look somewhat mossy to me because of you can see it hanging off. Yeah. There's so many photos out there, and you get to looking at some of the stuff and you're like, boy, that's a stretch, you know? Um,
Yeah, I mean, I want to see one, but do I really want to see one? And a lot of people are like, you don't. Some people are like, you really don't want to see one. It'll fry your brain. Because that's all you'll think about for the rest of your life. And it's like, what is it? And you'll try to put it into a box, and you'll just break your brain. So
yeah.
yeah,
There is an ape in Florida that's called this, I think it's called the skunk ape.
the
And
skunk ape. Yep,
yeah, and so that is a real, I think, what is it? Is that an orangutan like relative? Um, so there is an ape in Florida. Um,
it's essentially it's Bigfoot just under a different name. Just
they're not quite as big though.
no, they're a subspecies. Like each, it's almost like the Bigfoot we have around here. What do they call it? Gigantic blackie something. But in different areas, they either get bigger, smaller, meaner, whatever. They're just little subspecies. In Florida, is the skunk ape is a little subspecies of that,
Hmm.
in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I and I know we've had so there were some um kids that faked the Bigfoot sighting on Scout Mountain, so that the whole thing was remember
Oh,
that? It was 8 or
that
9 years ago, so they could have Bigfoot hunters out here, that group. Um, it was
that
all
was
part of the
yeah,
publicity stunt, actually. They finally copped to it and said, yeah, there wasn't a
yeah,
Bigfoot.
yeah. It was for Finding Bigfoot. I remember.
Yeah, finding
I
Bigfoot.
remember when that was on the news, and I got all excited. I was like, "What? Yes, I'm going. I'm going to go check it out." I'm like, yeah, got so excited for that. Oh, I was mad.
So, um, one of, one of my friends who was on this team for a number of years, and she's absolutely certain that she has seen a Bigfoot in the Scout Mountain area. Back, this would be gosh, 60 years ago. So she's
Oh,
absolutely
I'm not
convinced.
surprised.
She's absolutely convinced. But yeah, um, I don't know. I am just kind of like, show me. And I know they've collected a lot of hair out in the field doing different things. And a lot of times the hair comes back to a known species of whatever, a bear, a
It's always
fox, a coyote, or whatever. Um,
yeah.
I don't know that we've ever had anything come back to any kind of ape-like creature other than the known Florida skunk ape that they have. I don't think we've had anything come back like that. Um, I mean, I I don't remember, but chimpanzees are chromosomal. Their chromosomes are very similar to human chromosomes. So I think there's like one chromosome off. So you would think if we
They're really, really close.
really close, if we found hair, it would come back somewhat like that because it's humanoid. I mean, it has that human shape. It has that ape shape, very similar to us. So you would think if we would have found hair, it could come back to maybe an unknown species, but in the world of the apes. I mean, they could come down pretty close to that stuff.
Right, but it's not in the logs though. They have to have it in the logs to be able to log it. So you can just say, well,
Well, they could
this
say
is
it's
a
genetically similar to an ape. You
and
know,
that
we're not.
they
That's
they
my
can go,
point.
well, what?
We don't have anything. Nothing's coming back as even an unknown species. Not from what I'm reading.
Yeah, it's just roadblock after roadblock with that. They I think they're getting close, but it always there's always some kind of hang up with it.
So, yeah, I have a friend who had an experience. There's an area in um, southern Bannock County over towards Arbon Valley. Um, for people who are familiar with this area, there's an area, I think they call it Crystal Basin. It's where people snowmobile. And it's when you're going through Scout Mountain area, Mink Creek, and you come up the grade. At the top is a snowmobile area, and they have a warming hut and
Oh
everything
yeah,
up there,
yeah.
right? And then you can drop back down and you go into Arbon Valley, right? So, very heavily used area because you've got hikers and mountain bikes, and you have four-wheel drives and ATVs and UTVs, and just a super heavily used area. That's where my friend, years ago, thought she saw, you know. Um, anyway, so another friend of mine said that she was snowshoeing through that area with her husband. They rode their snowmobile as far as they could go up into the aspen tree line back in the very edge of the snowmobile area. And there aren't any groomed trails back there. And then they got off and they were going to camp overnight. They were going to snow camp overnight. And they got off their snow machines and were just walking through the aspens on their snowshoes. And her husband stopped her and pointed down to the ground and saw human-shaped footprints almost as large as their snowshoes. And he stopped so suddenly that she ran into the back of him, and she's, what the heck's going on? And he's not saying anything, but he's pointing kind of next to where they had been walking was these footprints. And they followed him for a while and got really, really spooked and ended up turning around and going home because they didn't know what it was. Now, is that somebody up there messing around with some kind of device that's making prints? I don't know. But she's also in the science field, and I think she's a hydrogeologist. So she's a very, she's very analytical in how she thinks. And then this happened to her, and it really shook her. It's the second thing that has happened to her up there, and yeah, she doesn't go up there anymore. So, yeah.
That's understandable. Yeah, man, I wish I could have been there to see that, because I would have looked to see if there's a pile in the mid-tarsal break that usually happens after a foot comes down. So usually it would come down and it would grab a little bit of snow, and then when it lift off, it would drop it in a pile. So that would be indicative of that being a real footprint, besides dermal ridges and, the little knuckle mark, little striations and whatnot in your fingerprints. Yeah, that would. And who the heck is walking around barefoot in the mountains anyway?
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's cold here in the wintertime. If people haven't experienced a southeast Idaho cold, it is really, really, really cold here. It's
an
example is it was minus 38 last year in my barn last winter. I mean, it was a cold winter here. So
yeah, and people don't realize that if it's 20 degrees here, you drive an hour either north or south, and it changes 10-15 degrees that quick.
So I don't know, like you said, who'd be messing around in the snow barefoot. The other thing to keep in mind is that when you leave a footprint in the snow, it's much larger than your normal footprint. Your footprint leaves a giant impression in the snow. So if you're a size 8, it looks like a size 12. I mean, they're just big in the snow. So,
but still, if something's leaving behind, yeah, that critter's big, whatever it is.
And it did have a human. To them, it appeared to be a human shape, but the stride was enormous. That was the other thing that she said, was that the stride, they're hoofing it. When you're in snowshoes, you're not taking really big strides anyway. But still, she said it was, 3 times the stretch that they can make in a snowshoe.
Did she happen to mention that the footprints were in a straight line? Because we as humans,
I didn't ask her, and she didn't say.
Darn. Because usually when someone comes along a trackway, they have something that's called a tightrope walk, and they leave some kind of a tight, like they're walking on a tightrope. It's interesting to see. One of these days I'll have to show you the footprints that a guy from Canada sent me. It's really neat. So, yeah. Anyway. Crazy people walking around in the snow in Idaho.
Can it happen? Yeah, it can happen. I don't know that. And that link to stride was what got me when she told me what the stride was. That she's like, there's no way we could do the stride. Like, we couldn't match the stride, particularly in snowshoes anyway, because you're flat. You have to. It's not like you're doing a normal stance when you're in a snowshoe. So anyway, it was pretty interesting. I just think it's a fascinating topic. I'm a skeptic. I will be a skeptic until I see this thing up close and personal. But Does that mean there isn't something out there? No. I mean, we we develop or we discover new species all the time. Usually they're in South America or Central America in the jungles they have a little incredible cover. That's not to say that we don't have a lot of cover here, and maybe they just understand really well how to get away from us. And
we're dangerous.
Well, yeah.
Pure and simple.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen the shows where something is like you said, pounding on a camper or pounding on the side of a house or doing something, and that would be terrifying. But I'm also the kind of person who would run outside with a shotgun and want to know who was there. So, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm really curious if any of our viewers, any of our listeners have ever run across anything like this. Please, please, please email me your story at Colleen, COLLEEN, at PocatelloParanormalResearch.com. Because if you have, I want to hear from you. I would love to have you on a podcast. I would love for you to share your story. The world is a fascinating place. And there is the possibility something's out there. I would love to see it. So
I'd like to too, but at a distance.
Like a grizzly over there. Oh, way over there.
Yeah, way over there, at least 200 yards away, and I'm in a car and on a highway.
Work on them. I don't know. But anyway, good topic, Kelly. Thanks for the podcast. And for the audience out there, please tell me your stories if you have them. All right. This is Colleen and Kelly signing off.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.
Ha 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 ha!